Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:06 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, we talk to Mark Paoletta about the left's latest attacks on Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, a decent American, a guy who loves America, who does his job so well. So, of course, the left is taking aim at him, as they always do. We'll talk to Mark about that. Emma Jo Morris is here at 5 o'clock. Julian Assange is free, and Hillary Clinton's ticked off about it. We'll discuss that with her. And Noah Wall joins us at 5:30. He's the guy who's been digging into why are all of these bizarro flags being painted on streets and sidewalks all across the country. He's got an answer to that question. A little bit of a deeper dive there. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. In a moment, I want to share with you some brand new information being released today involving one of the leading transgender organizations on the planet. They write the guidelines globally for how to handle all of this gender mutilation, especially with children. And a Biden official has had a hand in making it all happen. It's all so crazy, but the details are just out, and we'll share that with you in a moment. But first, to the phones we go. I want to take Kevin in Manassas, who has been waiting very patiently on line one. Kevin, good afternoon, sir. You are on the Vince Colonnese Show.
Good afternoon, Vince. I have not yet had the pleasure to wish you a welcome back and say glory to God for your recovery. You are a vital voice in the cause, and we need you.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be back, Kevin.
Said you 10-4. I wanted to talk about the debate, and I think your caller, a regular caller, Ivan, pointed out many great points yesterday of what President Trump ought to focus on, and I want to just put some more onto that. You know, the Democrats are always accusing conservatives and Donald Trump of being totalitarians, but yet I believe President Trump ought to point out who shut down debate on the COVID origin, who shut down debate on the COVID remedies, who shut down debate on the vaccine, who forced you to take vaccine, who shut your church but kept the liquor stores open on every corner, who put a gag order on a criminal defendant. I'm not a lawyer, Vince, but the people that I've heard, gag orders are very seldom, if ever, used against the defendant. You have a right to defend yourself in this country. Just a litany of things that they have done to Donald Trump, and I think that this debate is going to backfire if they decide to go 3-on-1. It is going to continue to show the majority of the American people who are not useless idiots. I know there's a term called useful idiots. I call them useless idiots. And then the 30% of the brain damaged or corrupt Democrats who support Joe Biden, because we are sick and tired of our government being weaponized against us, stealing our money, stealing our rights, and we're fed up with it. And that's why you see after the conviction, so many more people are turning to Donald Trump. In fact, I was incarcerated the last time in 2016, so I did not have the opportunity to vote for President Trump. And because I'm a felon, my rights were not restored. Governor Northam in Virginia reinstated my rights, but it was after the 2020 election. I wonder if that's because I'm a registered Republican. But I got my voter ID or my voter registration card in the mail, and I plan on getting a T-shirt made up saying "Felons for Trump" when I go to vote.
Yeah, they're trying to make a big deal that he's the felon. He's a felon, therefore you shouldn't vote for him. And here he is running for president, more popular than ever. And one of the things I was thinking about this week, Kevin, in light of the polling and the fundraising and all of the energy now for President Trump going into this election, I'm pretty convinced now that of the entire Republican primary field, Trump is actually the most electable. There was a claim that early on, there was like, well, maybe DeSantis would be more electable, and of course Republican voters preferred Trump. I don't think so. I think Trump is reinventing political coalitions in a way that we haven't seen in our lifetime, and definitely accruing energy for himself and for the country. I honestly, at this point, I really do think that he's the most electable guy who is even in that field. And on this point about Democrats being totalitarians, Kevin, have you seen the video at all of Nancy Pelosi debating Winston Marshall, the ex-guitar player for Mumford & Sons at Oxford, at the Oxford Student Union recently? Have you seen this at all?
No, I have not, but I will check it out.
You should check it out. It's really good. But in so many words, this guitarist, again, from Mumford & Sons, a great band, he came out and he has a great British accent, and he's standing up there talking about how Nancy Pelosi is the totalitarian, how she's the authoritarian, and how the left, they call themselves Democrats in America. They're not democratic at all. And in fact, he points to a series of things. One of them is the propensity for people like Nancy Pelosi to straight up deny that elections were even won by Republicans. He points that she denied the results of the 2016 election. Additionally, he points to all of the headlines in American newspapers who say that the real problems with democracy are the voters. So every time the left loses, you get an op-ed in places like the New York Times or the LA Times or the Washington Post declaring that, the real problem with this system, it's the voters. And they always write some version of that in the wake of Democrat Party losses. It's a real trouble in this system. And he's saying, look, the real one of the problems here on the left, the way they're totalitarian, to your point, Kevin, is censoring and silencing conversations like the ones you were just talking about, the stuff around COVID, the stuff around the election, the fact that these big media companies shut down entire lines of communication. He also pointed to the effort to remove Donald Trump from the ballots in Colorado and Maine as evidence of the left not being for democracy, but instead against it. And so you should check out this video, Kevin, because it definitely speaks your language. It speaks my language for sure. And when I see this, it echoes exactly what you're saying, which is that the left is constantly projecting this whole thing about, the right wants to be authoritarian. It wants to tell everybody how to live. It wants to rob them of their, quote, democracy. And in reality, of course, as we look ahead to this week and what this debate is really about, we had a caller, I think, indicated yesterday, too. Maybe it was Ivan's call, perhaps, where he was saying this is the difference between liberty and tyranny. This is, and the side of liberty is President Trump. Trump is on the side of liberty here. Biden is on the side of tyranny. How many more expressions of that do we need in order to become convinced of it? When the Supreme Court tells him, stop just giving away other people's money and say you're paying off student loans, you can't do that. Biden goes on stage and he brags about defying that. When Americans say that they believe sincerely in the Second Amendment and owning their guns as a prophylactic against government tyranny, what does Biden say on those stages? He says, that's not good enough. You need an F-16. You can't stop me. I'm going to attack you with jets. What kind of president goes on stage and says they're going to attack American citizens with military jets in order to foreclose on their ability to keep their Second Amendment rights? That is an expression of tyranny. And so I don't know how many more examples we need of this, but you are totally right, Kevin, that anyone who has an opportunity to get in front of a microphone and talk about this, and that includes Donald Trump, as he does it this week, should do a sober litany of all of the ways in which our liberty is imperiled by the continued power of the American left.
Amen. Can I add one more thing real quick?
Please.
The Bible says in Ephesians 6:12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And that verse is pertinent today in America.
Boy, and there's a lot of evil out there. You can definitely feel it, and it's on the move. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate your call today and your patience in getting through. Let me see here. I got Chris calling in from the front line of the Heartland in Marshall, line 5. Hello, Chris. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
I have an appeal right away for Corey to get Kevin's number and get him in touch with me. I'd love to get to know him. He is an asset that we need. Listen, we've heard a lot about this being a gang up on Thursday against Trump, and I think it's really great that they have these three people going against Trump because they're regarded as like intelligent and level-minded and reasonable and everything. It'd be one thing if it was hosted by Joy Behar and Joy Reid, who are acknowledged whack jobs. But these three, Dana Bash and what's his name and the Vegetant, Trump is going to eat them alive, and they are regarded as the benchmark of the leftist establishment. I can't think of three better adversaries for Trump to chew up and spit out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, I mean, if there's anybody who can withstand a 3-on-1 attack, it's clearly President Trump. In fact, I mean, think back to the primary debates of 2016. All these Republicans standing on that stage alongside President Trump, a bunch of them taking swings at him all at the same time. None of it worked. It was totally feckless. So imagine the same scenario is going to play out this week on Thursday, of course, with different actors. Thank you, Chris. Great call, as always. Let me get Jason in Kensington in here, line 3. Jason, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, g'day, Vince. How you going, mate? I've been sporting calls from Australia, and they're all sort of geared to watch this debate. It's sort of like a must-see TV. And the biggest thing that they're talking about is they're trying to figure out, they're trying to guess how the left and the CNN are going to spin this to try and shore up Joe Biden's argument, because they're not too worried about Trump. They're just sort of trying to figure out what they're going to do to try and save this guy from being destroyed. And I think that's the sort of the biggest story of the whole debate, and that's what they're talking about mostly.
How to salvage Biden's campaign?
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much they're talking about it's sort of more of like they just can't believe that he's actually going to make it to the debate stage. So the biggest story is, so how are they going to, whether it's like trying to wire him up to someone speaking to him in the background or having it all, I don't know. It's going to be sort of a strange.
It's crazy. What do you make, Jason, of this week-long debate prep that they're doing with Biden? He's in debate camp at Camp David. They've built an entire studio around him, including lights and cameras and all sorts of things. They have somebody's playing the part of Donald Trump and standing alongside him. They actually have lecterns, for real. They have lecterns. Everyone in the media calls them podiums. Set up. So he's standing behind a lectern. He's practicing the debate, literally going through the motions. He's rehearsing how to conduct this debate. And the claim I'm seeing in the media is they're trying to train him to trigger Trump. They want him to trigger Donald Trump. They want Donald Trump to lose control on the debate stage. And Joe Biden is just the guy to provoke him into doing that. What do you think of all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think how they got like a dummy or a mannequin dressed up as Trump up there, and then they're going to have like replicants or something like that step in for Joe Biden. I don't know. I just can't see how he can handle it, because, I mean, he can't read a teleprompter in a debate. I mean, it's not like, I mean, obviously he's probably going to know the questions, but then again, he's going to have to remember those questions when he walks from the side of the stage to the podium. He probably forget the questions anyway, but I mean, yeah, it's going to be.
Well, I saw somebody say CNN's not going to give him the questions. They're going to give him the answers.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
well, but here's the thing, Jason. Have you noticed? So the reason we had another caller say this yesterday too. How do we know CNN's not actually giving him these questions at the very least, or the answers at all? And the answer is we don't actually know that. We do know the history at CNN, which is that their employees, Donna Brazile, she gave Hillary Clinton campaign all of the questions. Well, not all of them. She gave them some questions at least. When she was in the primary phase against Bernie Sanders. CNN would later part ways with Donna Brazile, saying, "Oh, we can't believe she did that." And of course, they only parted ways once it became public that she did that. Oh
yeah, we all know that. We all know they fed him the questions. The thing is too, it's just like, I think the media at this stage just knows that we sort of expect just wacky stuff out of them. I mean, that they're just going to be so biased. And then, I don't even know why they try to pretend not to be, but I mean, it's just so funny that they're going after people for biases, and it's almost like they're pre-projecting, what they want you to think. Oh, no, we're not biased, but, we are going to be biased.
But have you noticed that CNN has not released any statements talking about how they're trying to work to prevent their questions from being leaked? If you had a history of your questions being leaked to the establishment Democrat candidate, wouldn't you think that you would, ahead of this debate, you would, give the public some assurances? Oh, that's not going to happen again. We're working very hard to prevent that. I haven't seen a single thing to that effect. CNN has not offered any assurances to us, have they, Jason?
No, they're keeping the expectations pretty low. So I mean, they know that we're onto them, but. The thing is, too, that with the voters of the people who watch CNN, too, when it comes time, just say Trump wins the election, they share this responsibility of getting people riled up, because all these people, especially in the last election when Trump won, they got fed a whole bunch of tripe which kind of triggered them, and they got riled up by the media, and they basically had a backdoor to all this stuff and didn't assume any responsibility for the damage these people done from listening to their lies. It's just they just sort of got to feed all this crap to them.
And they always give Trump grief. They're always like, oh, he incited an insurrection. Really? If that's the standard, what did you incite people to do? What did CNN incite? And it's been super destructive.
Peaceful.
Yeah, mostly peaceful.
Yeah. But I'll see how it goes.
Thank you. Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it.
Mate.
And one last point on this Donna Brazile leak. You know how we found out about the Donna Brazile emails? Do you remember that? It was John Podesta. It was WikiLeaks. It was Julian Assange. Hillary hates that guy. He just went free. They said the Biden administration worked out a plea deal with him. He just went free, finally got out of jail. And I guarantee you Hillary is pissed about this. We will be talking about that subject with Emma Jo Morris coming up at 5 o'clock. Stay tuned for that. In the meantime. Okay, David is calling in from Stevens City, Virginia, line 4. David, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, how are you today?
Good, sir.
Good. I have two questions or whatever.
Sure.
One is this stuff that's going on with Biden up at Camp David with 16 people and building a stage and all of the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know how big Camp David is, but where are they keeping these people? How much food are they eating? And the best question, how much is it costing us taxpayers for this 7, 8, 9 days, however long he's been up there?
Yep. They're coasting around on golf carts and having a grand old time. It's a big production, David, and you're right. It's costing an immense amount of money. Thank you, David. It's a smart question. I don't have the answer. One more, though. I want to get John in Spotsylvania in here, line 5. John, good afternoon. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, Vince, me and my buddies, we're going to turn that debate into a drinking game.
Oh, yeah?
Every time Biden lies, we're taking a shot. Every time Biden looks and stumbles around and says the wrong words or mumbles, we're taking a shot.
That's a heck of a drinking game, John. You know what you should do? I might even help you out. This is going to be like a high school football game. We'll keep an ambulance parked right nearby just in case you're heading for some alcohol poisoning very quickly in that debate. If you're going to drink a shot every time Biden lies, be careful, John. Hey, good afternoon to you. 4:35 here at News Talk 105.9 WMAL. Where we are making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, Emma Jo Morris is here, politics editor for Breitbart News. We'll talk about Julian Assange going free and what that means for the rest of us and why Hillary Clinton's so angry about it. And Noah Wall is going to be here at 5:30. He's got some details on why all of these so-called pride murals are popping up on streets across America. Not an accident, not organic. A lot of details on that ahead. And you can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Fresh attacks on Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas this week. The left is unrelenting in its effort to take down this great American justice on the United States Supreme Court. For more on this, I want to bring in Mark Paoletta, as we so often do. Mark is a senior fellow at the Center for Renewing America and the co-editor of the book, Created Equal, Clarence Thomas in his own words. Mark, good to have you back with us, sir.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for having me on.
It seems, it's like every month or so we've got another one of these. What is it this time, Mark? What is the left doing?
As bad as it's been and how many times they attacked Justice Thomas, this one may be the worst of all time. This was a recent chart by Fix the Court, a big-time left-wing funded group that touts themselves as a nonpartisan group, of course, right? Just wanting to have good government. That came up with this absurd number that Justice Thomas accepted $4.3 million in gifts over 20 years, and compare it to the other justices who had done just $600,000 in the same span, with Justice Breyer only getting $15,000 in gifts. And when I looked at this chart, it was just so astonishingly dishonest, with false information and just it was seemingly designed just to attack Justice Thomas. And as bad as the left is at attacking him and smearing him, this one was just really, really astonishing. So what do? They count as a gift when the Thomases would go visit their friends, the Crows, Harlan Crow, his friend, up in their home in the Adirondacks, at their home, their summer home. That is counted as a $280,950 gift, okay, for the Thomases. Okay, so there are these the counting, and again, remember the Judicial Conference in 2012 had said Justice Thomas does not need to report any of these gifts with his friends because there had been a challenge to that back in 2012. They have an inconsistent standard, again, all to get Justice Thomas, of what counts as a gift for purposes of a trip. So Justice Thomas went to Dallas to give a speech, and I was there, an incredible speech on civil rights back in 2022. He disclosed it. It was an AEI event. So justices go and speak all the time at different events, schools, but also at things like this. And Harlan Crow, his friend, has a private plane, and he's an AEI trustee. He flew Justice Thomas down on his plane. Fix the Court counts that as a $68,000 gift. $68,333 to get down to the actual dollar. Whereas Stephen Breyer took 230 trips, including 7 over the same period of time, 17 funded by the Pritzker family because he sits on something called the Pritzker Prize for Architecture. He was a judge on this thing. And they flew him to London and Paris and Beijing. None of those trips show up on the chart. They have a price tag of $500,000 for a vacation Justice Thomas took to Indonesia, as if he had chartered a boat and a plane by himself. A wildly inflated, crazy number, actually. Nobody does that. In fact, that's not what happened. Justice Thomas was with 15 other people on that trip. This is what Fix the Court does to come up with a crazy number and then, sort of the malign and attack Justice Thomas. Some of the information they rely on comes from ProPublica. And as I pointed out, ProPublica is filled with errors and misinformation in their stories about Justice Thomas. But it never stops. They ratchet it up during the springtime as the court gets to the end of its term to really go after the court because they're worried about all these big decisions coming down that will go against the left, as it happened in with the Dobbs case in 22, the affirmative action case last year, and now some big cases coming up this year. But it just never ends, Vince, and it's just outrageous. But you have to push back against it. You have to show why it's full of lies and dishonest presentations, false information. It's just nonstop.
It sure is. Okay, let me ask some basic threshold questions. Has any of Harlan Crow, who's a friend of the Thomases and the left likes to target because he's wealthy and therefore has nice places for the Thomases to go visit. Has Harlan Crow ever had business before the court that Justice Thomas ruled on that he shouldn't have?
He has never had, Harlan Crow, nor his company, Crow Holdings, has ever had a case in all the time Justice Thomas has been on the Supreme Court, right? And one of the things that, Harlan Crow's been very open about, he's pro-choice. Okay, so here, on a big issue, Justice Thomas obviously was part of the Dobbs majority, and they are friends. They are Harlan Crow's a great patriot. He's not as conservative as Justice Thomas. He has no business before the Supreme Court, and that's what's just so crazy here, right? Nobody cares that Justice Jackson, right, for 10 years had never disclosed her husband is a doctor, but he gets legal fees for consulting on medical malpractice cases. And guess what? For 10 years, she never disclosed that. She when she was nominated to the Supreme Court, she put it down like, oh yeah, I forgot to do that for several years over the past 10 years. She did it her first year on the district court when she went on the bench in 2012. Her first filing has her husband's clients down. Okay? And she never again does it again. And then when she gets nominated to the Supreme Court, she says, I forgot to do it, but she doesn't tell us, what or where or when or what year. Nobody seems bothered by that. Those are cases, right? Those are that's litigation. And so here, Harlan Crow never had a case before the Supreme Court. So yes, to answer your question on that.
Okay, so here's another one for you. This organization, Fix the Court, the one that claims that Clarence Thomas is running afoul of all sorts of ethics obligations. Meanwhile, all the left-wing justices are as pure as the driven snow. Who is funding Fix the Court? I'm interested in that.
Well, a lot of left-wing billionaires. There's forgetting his name. He's a guy who made up millions, maybe billions, in the housing crisis back in 2008. So it's all left-wing groups, almost exclusively, that funds Fix the Court. Just like left-wing sources, same donors, actually, that fund ProPublica. If you look at ProPublica's site, they don't do any oversight on the Biden administration. Fix the Court. Fix the Court. Here you go. Fix the Court likes to pretend, right? So they come up with this chart that covers all the justices, right? But they have this skewed way of counting that only smears Justice Thomas, okay? Mm-hmm. One of the examples they use is there was a scholarship that was set up. The Horatio Alger Association funds scholarships for disadvantaged kids who grew up under terrible circumstances. Mm-hmm. Justice Thomas is a member of it. And he speaks at that event every year. He spends time with the kids. There's always these scholarship kids who come up, and he spends time with them. The organization, to honor Justice Thomas, set up a scholarship in his son's name, Justice Thomas's son's name, at two high schools that Justice Thomas was. His son had gone to school at one of them, Fork Union, and the other one is Randolph-Macon, where his great-nephew had gone. They set up a scholarship. None of the money went to any Thomas relative or any Thomas family member. Okay, it's $35,000. They count that as a gift to Justice Thomas on this chart. Okay. Meanwhile, Ruth Bader Ginsburg gets a $1 million gift prize from the Burgoon Institute. And I actually helped uncover this, but she then, not that part, that was public. She gave out all that $1 million prize money to her favorite charities, made them swear that they would not release who got the money. Okay, so you still can't to this day find out who got it, but they don't count that as a prize for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Okay, that's the disconnect. So, why Ruth Bader Ginsburg didn't have $1 million gift in her column, right? Her column, her number on this chart is $55,000, $14 $55,014 for Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So they are skewing it in a way that's so dishonest to, again, just attack Justice Thomas, make him look like an outlier on this chart. They count up lots of people, right? We see President Obama, we see President Biden, accompanied by his son, Hunter Biden, going to basketball games, right? You see them sitting courtside. You see them sitting in suites. You saw Jill Biden sitting in the owner's box last year at the Super Bowl, right? Yep. For her beloved Philadelphia Eagles. Yes. Okay. Nothing is ever reported on the Biden's forms. No. Okay. Justice Thomas went to a University of Nebraska football game, right? Sat in a suite. As those suites work, the ticket price for each seat in there is assigned by the university. It's $65, but somehow ProPublica calculates it at $989.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so this is what they do. They play games with how they count the value of a gift.
Yeah.
Right. The Bidens have gone to all these billionaire homes. They're not their friends. They're their donors, like David Rubenstein up in Nantucket, a $31 million home, right? The Bidens have stayed there repeatedly, and he's never disclosed it, okay? It's not personal hospitality, which is exempted from being disclosed.
Yep.
That's not personal hospitality to say, I want to take over your house for a week with my clan and stay there for free. He does that all over the country, Biden. It's never been reported on in the media. The only group that the organization that has is the New York Post and me on my Twitter and some of my op-eds. Mm-hmm. But this is the dishonesty, the weaponization, the dishonest weaponization of ethics.
Yes.
To go after Justice Thomas and the other conservative justices like Justice Alito with his flag flying.
Yeah, and so Justice Thomas has been been an oversharer on the details here because he wants to do right, obviously. And I know that he's been a part of these new ethics standards that they're imposing at the court, so he can share even more information with the public now going forward in order to make sure nobody can even question his integrity. Meanwhile, I just pulled up the Influence Watch listing for Fix the Court, product of the Capitol Research Center, and they point out that Fix the Court is obviously a left-of-center judicial policy organization. It's a former project of the New Venture Fund, which itself is a part of Arabella Advisors. This is as left-wing as it gets. These are all these dark money left-wing billionaires funding these awful attacks on the right. They point out that the executive director of Fix the Court is a guy called Gabe Roth, who warned a reporter that he couldn't disclose their donors because, quote, if their names become public, they're never going to talk to me again and Fix the Court is over. So you have a group here that has anonymous left-wing billionaires funding it, designed to take down great American Supreme Court justices like Clarence Thomas, and then they have the temerity to claim that Justice Thomas isn't being fully forthcoming with all of his financial donors. The whole thing is so crazy.
You know, Vince, that's why I love coming on your show. You went right to the source. I wish I'd gone there with you. But there's other things on Gabe Roth. I think there's a complaint against him that based on the amount of money they've raised,
yes,
he's paid himself too much. I think he
was caught. They claim he was caught making false statements to the IRS on their financial disclosures and underreporting their revenues by at least $240,000.
Yes, and I also think there was something about lobbying where he was lobbying and he wasn't registering as a lobbyist. So here's the watchdog, right? Here's the watchdog who can't get his own house in order and funded by left-wing, and these groups like to say, oh, they don't control our work. These funders don't control our work. What are they investing in you for? What are they funding you for, right? Where are all your funders coming from? They're coming from the left. It's to attack the court. It's to attack these justices, in particular, my friend Justice Thomas, who they've been after for more than 30 years, since he showed up in Washington in the Reagan administration in 1981. But going after him, first bad piece was on in December of 1980. But it's just.
You know what should happen? You know what should happen? Harlan Crow should get in touch with this organization, Fix the Court, and be like, hey, I'm gonna cut you a big check, but I need you to investigate Ketanji Brown Jackson. Would you do that for me? Just let me know and see what happens. He's got the money. He can throw it around. All right, Mark Paoletta, thank you, sir. I appreciate the clarity on this topic as always. Really, really good to talk to you today, sir. Richard is calling in from Manassas, line 6. Richard, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Callahan Show.
Hey, thanks for taking my call as always, Vince.
My pleasure.
The whole Biden prep thing tells me two things. One, they have no confidence in Joe Biden. Why do you have to go back to square one? Allegedly, Biden cleaned Trump's clock last time around in 20. So why does he got to go back to square one? Why does he need 9 days? I'm thinking that Joe Biden doesn't remember that debate, and he basically is relearning how to debate, and that's why they're taking 9 days with podium, lecterns, and studios. They're really trying to reintroduce debating, something that Joe Biden has been doing for like 50 years.
Well, and they're trying to rehearse lines.
Declined he is.
They're trying to pound a couple of lines into his head. That's the key. That's the best you could hope for. If you were handed like a project like Biden, what would you do with that? If somebody handed him off to you and said, okay, I need this guy to be ready to stand on the stage for 90 minutes. How do you make this thing work? That's a challenge for anyone. They are rehearsing with him all week because they're hoping that, one, he can just stand there for the whole 90, and then two, and more importantly for them, deliver the kinds of lines that they can then use all across the media to try and attack Trump in the weeks ahead.
The only way that works is if he already knows the questions and how they're going to be phrased ahead of time. Otherwise, you're just kind of peppering with broad topics in a certain category. But to know how to orchestrate a response, he'd have to know the question beforehand.
Yeah, well, watch closely. I think you'll be able to tell instantly as you watch this debate this week. Or listen to it right here on WMAL. We'll be airing the whole thing starting at 9 o'clock Thursday. But the other piece is, what do the moderators do? I heard apparently Chris Plant was suggesting this morning, so wisely as he so often does, that they should be muting the microphones of the moderators when Trump is speaking. You know, because if your opponent is going to be muted, well, that would include CNN anchors, that's for sure. Smart idea. Smart idea. Coming up, we're going to be joined by Emma Jo Morris, a writer for Breitbart News, journalist there. She's got some thoughts on Julian Assange going free and Hillary Clinton seething. She's ready to call in a drone strike as we speak. It's ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show.